Welcome to U.S. Briefing. The content of the briefing includes U.S. House Republicans nominate Jim Jordan for Speaker. Weekend Time Schedule. Hamas must be destroyed. U.S. fears Israel has no plan for how to contain Gaza invasion fallout. Aging in Hong Kong, can we look forward to more than care homes? U.S. House Republicans nominate Jim Jordan for Speaker. Japan Times. Representative Jim Jordan, a hardline conservative, won the Republican nomination to lead the U.S. House of Representatives, but he still falls short of the support he needs to become the Speaker. Jordan has the backing of a majority of House Republicans, but he still needs 217 votes to win the job. Republicans have decided to go home for the weekend, leaving the House without a leader until at least Monday. Weekend Time Schedule. Associated Press. This article provides a schedule of sporting events to take place on Saturday, October 14th and Sunday, October 15th. The events include NBA preseason games, NHL hockey games, MLS soccer games, college football games, golf tournaments, tennis tournaments, auto racing events, and an NFL football game in London. The article lists the times and teams involved in each event. Hamas must be destroyed. The Toronto Star. As the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to escalate, the Toronto Sun has published an opinion piece calling for the destruction of Hamas. The article describes the recent attacks by Hamas as the worst attack on Israel since the Yom Kippur War in 1973 and accuses Hamas supporters of outrageous advocacy and embracing of the abomination. The author argues that there is no moral relativism in methodical mass murder and states that there is no place on earth where Jews are safe. The article concludes by stating that the eradication of Hamas must be achieved and that Israel will have to wage this counter-war alone. The author acknowledges that the conflict will likely erode moral support in world capitals and criticizes the UN for denouncing Israel's aggressive response. The article concludes by stating that civilians will die in great numbers and that Hamas will have more blood on its hands. The Toronto Sun has been criticized for publishing this article and for its coverage of the conflict. U.S. fears Israel has no plan for how to contain Gaza invasion fallout. South China Morning Post. President Joe Biden has promised unconditional support for Israel as it gears up for a ground war in the Gaza Strip. But his administration is worried that the Israeli government isn't ready for the fallout from the massive invasion that could come at any hour. People familiar with the Biden administration's stance say the White House fears that Israel does not have a plan for what comes next for Gaza after an invasion, and is pressing them to think beyond the immediate goal of eradicating Hamas. Aging in Hong Kong, can we look forward to more than care homes? SCMP opinion. The Hong Kong government should look at expanding the senior housing market to enable the elderly to age in place, according to Ryan IP, Vice President and co-head of research at our Hong Kong Foundation. IP called for the government to consider implementing policies that would encourage the development of senior housing, including offering incentives such as bonus floor space. IP also suggested enhancing services in regular housing, such as carrying out home modifications, to help the elderly retain their independence. New York officers won't face charges in death of man who caught fire after being shot with stun gun. The Toronto Star. Police officers in upstate New York will not face criminal charges in connection with the death of a man who doused himself with hand sanitizer and then caught on fire when one of the officers shot a stun gun at him, the state attorney general's office said Friday. How will the deaths of high-profile murder suspects tip Ecuador's election? Al Jazeera. The killings of 7 suspects in the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio, an anti-corruption candidate in the Ecuadorian presidential election, could impact the outcome of the race. Pollster Omar Malouk said the events could affect the 5% of voters that are highly unpredictable, as they may change their minds over concerns about the killings. The 2 candidates in the runoff election, which takes place on Sunday, are left-wing candidate Luisa Gonzalez and centrist business scion Daniel Noboa. Montana judge keeps in place a ban on enforcement of law restricting drag shows, drag reading events. The Toronto Star. A U.S. federal judge has continued to block a Montana law that restricts drag shows and bans drag reading events in public schools and libraries. U.S. District Court Judge Brian Morris said that the law targets free speech and expression and that the text of the law and its legislative history evince anti-LGBTQ+ animus. The temporary injunction will remain in place while a lawsuit filed on July 6 moves through the court process. Hello viewers, I'm Dr. Six, your friendly neighborhood observer from the 6 Degrees world. Let's dive into today's news. In the world of U.S. politics, Representative Jim Jordan has won the Republican nomination to lead the House of Representatives but still needs more support to become the Speaker. Looks like the House will be leaderless until at least Monday, as Republicans have decided to go home for the weekend. I guess they needed a break from all the politics. Moving on to sports, this weekend promises to be action-packed with NBA preseason games, NHL hockey games, MLS soccer games, college football games, golf tournaments, tennis tournaments, auto racing events, and even an NFL football game in London. It's a sports lover's dream. So grab your snacks and get ready to cheer for your favorite teams. In the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, tensions are escalating. An opinion piece in the Toronto Sun has called for the destruction of Hamas, citing recent attacks as the worst since the Yom Kippur War in 1973. The article argues that there is no moral relativism in methodical mass murder and states that Israel will have to wage this counter-war alone. The Toronto Sun has faced criticism for this article and its coverage of the conflict. Speaking of the conflict, the U.S. administration is concerned that Israel may not have a plan for the fallout from a potential ground war in the Gaza Strip. President Biden has promised unconditional support, but it seems the White House is pressing Israel to think beyond eradicating Hamas and consider what comes next for Gaza. Looks like even politicians need a backup plan. Let's shift our focus to Hong Kong, where Ryan IP, Vice President and co-head of research at our Hong Kong Foundation, is calling for the government to expand the senior housing market. IP suggests implementing policies that encourage the development of senior housing and enhancing services in regular housing to help the elderly retain their independence. It's time to think beyond care homes and create more options for our elders. In a tragic incident in upstate New York, police officers will not face criminal charges in connection with the death of a man who caught fire after being shot with a stun gun. The state attorney general's office determined that the officers will not be held criminally responsible. It's a heartbreaking situation, and I hope we can find better ways to handle such incidents in the future. Moving to Ecuador, the killings of 7 suspects in the assassination of an anti-corruption candidate could impact the outcome of the presidential election. Pollsters believe that the unpredictable 5% of voters may change their minds due to concerns about the killings. It's a sad reminder of the influence such events can have on our democratic processes. And finally, in a victory for free speech and expression, a federal judge has continued to block a Montana law that restricts drag shows and bans drag reading events in public schools and libraries. The judge deemed the law to be targeting the LGBTQ+ community and has issued a temporary injunction while the lawsuit moves through the court process. Let's celebrate diversity and inclusivity. That's all for today's news updates. Now it's your turn, viewers. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any questions? Let's open up the floor for discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.